Welcome, everyone. As many of you are trickling in, thank you for showing up to our Monday equals MC squared. And Chris and I are back from our little short trip that we took to New Mexico. New Mexico is, I would say, one of my favorite places in this maybe entire world. I've been to a lot of places. I've lived in a lot of places. But I don't know, there's something about it. I think I said to Chris that goddesses live there, and goddesses from all walks of life and history. They all kind of gather up in New Mexico. So we just love going there and spending some quiet time. So it was lovely. And today I wanted to take a moment, and maybe all of you can get a little bit grounded and celebrate and appreciate and take a moment and breathe for Indigenous Peoples Day. That's today. And it shouldn't just be today, but it's very important that we do take a moment and recognize that wherever you are, they have always been indigenous people there also. So this isn't just about the United States or North America, but I think of the indigenous people in Japan called Ainu people. Ainu people always lived in a Hokkaido island, which is the northern part of Japan, but they've also lived all across Japan. But they've been pushed and pushed and pushed. And I think there are only about a couple thousand people who are actually Ainu, and they speak the language of Ainu now in Japan. So it's one of those things that it's important for us to recognize the grounds that we're standing on. What is that about? We shouldn't take it lightly. And we also need to pause and recognize and appreciate the grounds that we get to walk on. It's a privilege for all of us to be able to walk on this grounds that many people have been pushed out, and a lot of sorrows and grief and shedding of blood and destructions have been created on these lands that we build our houses on, that we build our grocery stores on, that we put parking lots on. And it's maybe a little different, but on the way back from New Mexico, we always have like a little bathroom stops that we know where to go. We've done this trip so many times that we know exactly where to stop. But there's this one grocery store that we always park to get gas or maybe stop for the bathroom break. And in the middle of the parking lot, there are these glorious, gorgeous, ancient aspen trees. And I know that for sure because these aspen trees are gigantic. But this time when we parked near these clusters, just these three giant aspen trees, two of them were totally dried up, and I suspect they're not going to make it. And the third one was losing a lot of limbs, and they were drying out. And I thought, wow. I stopped and looked at them, and still thinking about it makes me saddened because we put concrete around these ancient aspen trees. So, I think we all have that history in all of us as well. There's no way that you will be here on this earth without having that connection to this earth. And we also have the connection to the destructions of this earth as well, and the people that have been here much, maybe longer than, maybe your history and your ancestors. So it's worth taking a moment and recognizing that. So, and I wanted to take you through 3 minutes of resonance frequency breathing to start with, but I will pause and maybe Chris has something to share. So.
Well, I think you covered that really nicely. Yeah, I think this is really the day that today is really reminding us about is where we all come from too. And ultimately, we all come from this earth. And we'll have a little bit more to say about this later on today. But I think it's really an opportunity for us to not only remember the indigenous people who are still living close to the earth relative to the societies that have forgotten, but it's also an opportunity for us to remember that that's where we come from too. And we can do something to reconnect. I don't know if you were going to mention the Thich That Hanh later on. If you are, I'll save it.
Oh, I think I was just going to transition into Thich That Hanh also.
Well, I'll hand it back to you then.
Well, I just thought it was so fitting that his birthday is today also. And I've been really wondering about him because he moved back from France back to Cambodia, where he's originally from. And he just,
sorry, it's Vietnam.
I'm sorry, Vietnam. I'm sorry. Yeah, Vietnam. I'm glad you corrected me on that. That's right. And he just turned 95 today. And I had been wondering about him because I knew that he went back and he was going home to basically slowly transition into his next journey. But he's still here, and he is actually going to be publishing another book coming out this month. So, I think it would be worth looking into. But it's all about us connecting back to this Mother Earth and to Mother Gaia. So he's really continuously teaching us to listen in, to deeply listen in. And I think goes really well with the topic that we're going to be discussing today. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this, but it's the spotlight versus the floodlight idea. And how can we focus a little bit more in so the focus becomes a little more potent? And one of the practices that I wanted to bring up in terms of even connecting with today's day as Indigenous Peoples Day, but as well as to celebrate a great teacher, 95-year-old teacher like Thich That Hanh, that's teaching us to come back to where we come from, the origin of who we are, which is the Mother Earth, right? And one of the greatest ways that you can do is to really tune into your breath. And I have my phone here so that I can direct you for 3 minutes. And it's very simple. If you want to check your pulse with it, that's fine. Okay. If that keeps you connected to you, that's great. Or you can check your pulse here as well. That's optional. But what you're going to be doing is just count 4 counts to inhale and 6 seconds to exhale. That's all you're doing. 4 seconds to inhale, 6 seconds to exhale. This is going to create a natural resonance in you. This is going to create your own frequencies that will be a lot more grounded, but expansive as well. But it's very focused practice. So I will be looking at 3 minutes on this, and I will ring the bell at each minute. Okay, each minute. I wanted to see maybe the first minute, if you could focus on the Indigenous people and celebrate that, appreciate that, send lots of kind of the connectiveness, just the fact that you can be on this earth. We owe so much to the people before us, right? So spend that first minute, and I'll ring it after the first minute for the Indigenous peoples, okay? And then the second minute, see if you could spend it on the earth that you appreciate and deeply listen into the earth. Okay. And then after the second ring, the third one is that I'd like for you to spend that 1 minute just listening deeply into the inner nature of you, because this inner environment exists. This is where we have the flow. The lungs are like trees. Your liver has this golden liquid that flows through to clean you out, and the gallbladder as well. You have the river of blood going through, right? So we are just in the Milky Way in your brain, and the synapses that are always shining and flickering inside you. So we are this cosmic earthly matter, right? So I want you to spend the first minute for the Indigenous peoples, and in the second, connecting with the Mother Earth. And in the third one, spend some time listening in to your inner voice. Okay. So I will start soon. So get ready to just really tune in. Please don't do the floodlight work, meaning I got to get to this, I got to do that. Please just sit down. Okay, 3 minutes. If you're walking, find a tree, find a bench, somewhere you can even stand. Face the sun if you can. Okay. All right, so let's get started with the 4 inhale, 4 seconds to inhale, 6 seconds to exhale. Starting now. Focusing on this earth. Drop down deeply into your inner voice, listening in. Thank you so much, everyone.
So one thing I noticed is that that was the fastest 3 minutes that I can remember lately. And that tells me a lot about the speed I've been moving. So if you notice that, maybe it was the opposite. I've just worked with a class recently that we did just 1 minute of this, and it felt like an eternity. So sometimes when we are moving in distracted ways or our energy is low, I think when you're moving quickly, all of the time seems to move quickly with you. And when you are overwhelmed or overloaded, it's very easy to have that time, that space feel really expansive. So just take a notice of how it impacted you and where you were able to connect during those 3 rounds.
Mm. Yeah, it did feel short. um, During the lung retreat, we will do a little bit longer one as well together with the different themes. Hopefully we can dip down and dive deeply into connecting with our ancestors as well. But 3 minutes is a really good start, so if you could get somewhere during the day, morning is good, and at the end of the day, it's great. Always bookends are wonderful. I talk about the practices of the bookends of your life, because everything in the middle can get a little bit chaotic for a lot of us. But if you could do the 3 minutes, generally that's a good beginning. And then you want to build up your time on this. Okay. So with that, I wanted to say a couple things. I wanted to actually ask you how your Mercury retrograde's been going, because this has been an interesting one and I just wanted to share it. Ours been fascinating, huh, Chris? We've had some supplement packages that were not ours that came and we had to ship it back. And then we didn't receive our supplements that we ordered. And so there's been a lot of glitchy stuff there. But I'm also seeing that I'm receiving things like double the order, and they're like, oh, just keep it, So I'm like, I'm gaining a lot of things as well. It's like gifts are coming. And I read a couple of my emails that I received in the last couple of days saying, I got a free coffee at the coffee shop, or I received this like a beautiful note, or like there's been a lot of receiving also that's happening. So I would love to hear what you have been experiencing, because remember 2 weeks ago when I said, this Mercury retrograde, I am not going to go back into the same, oh no mode. And I'm going to say, I'm going to put myself out there. I am going to reach out. And I got invited to 2 more summits, and I'm not going to go into this next one. I'm not going to publicly talk about it, but it's a really positive thing that is happening that I've always wanted to get towards. And that's slowly opening up, and the doors crack opening. This door is really hard to open, and that door is actually cracked open, and I can see the light coming out of it. So I've been putting myself out there, and just as I said 2 weeks ago, I said, I am not going to sit back and 3 weeks in like triple check, double check, double check, triple check is something I do anyways, but this has been wonderful. Like things are slowly opening up in the ways that I never expected in the normal circumstances. So I hope many of you have taken the time to look back 6 months ago, really notice how far you've come, how much you have been able to accomplish or notice or clear out and discern. And hopefully you're noticing some of these things as well. So I wanted to mention that. Do you want to say anything about that Mercury retrograde things? Do you see any comments?
Yeah, I'll read some comments. And I also wanted to say that I'm beginning to see it more and more as a time to look at the hidden gifts that are surrounding us. Because one thing that happened to me during this time also is I went to a meeting that I had with somebody that I've done training and programs with in the past. And I didn't really know what the meeting was about. And she ended up giving me a bunch of stuff, like thank you stuff, a bag and a vest and a shirt. And then because of a glitchy thing that happened in their world, she also asked me last minute if I could do a training for her staff, which I hadn't expected. We'd never talked about. So you never know what little opportunities might be lying waiting for you if you turn off the fear for a minute, if that's what you're feeling, and notice how these little disruptions actually are almost like lifting up rocks or pieces of wood in a forest and seeing that there's this whole other ecosystem happening underneath them. So there's this, I don't know, this hidden world that we don't always look at because we're just rushing to do familiar things. And that's very much what we're here to talk about today. So let me take a couple of these comments. Diana mentioned just as an observation, time has been really strange. Seems like everything is shifting, very little stability. It's a little bit like that standing on the beach when the tide is going out kind of feeling. I think there's a lot of that going around. Marilyn says, a sister who normally ignores me has been reaching out. We've had a couple of actual conversations over the phone and email. Let's see. Cheryl says, right after I was informed I was being sued for not being able to pay a bill, an hour later, I was notified the county was gifting me $1,500, just enough for the lawyer I will need. Well, that's pretty amazing. Richard says, my primary woman friend left the state at the beginning of Mercury retrograde. She missed her first flight, but caught another one that day. It has been a relief for me. I had a wonderful reading by a highly respected medium. I attended a meeting of active grandmothers. It was great. I recited my latest poem. I'm a little froggy sitting in a pot.
Oh, and Richard, I did watch your interviews as well. So thank you. So I received that from you.
These are good ones that we have coming in. Erlene says, found the $50 I thought I'd burned.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
Sally says, I've been introduced to the Eastern Service Workers Association and beginning to volunteer work there.
Yay, Sally.
Andrew says, I'm ready to move forward and release, setting my intention to move to Montreal. And now that I'm practically near the end of my healing. And this afternoon, talked to my cousin who got married last Saturday.
That's great.
Let's see. And then Richard, I'll read your next one. I went to the local fair with another woman friend on Saturday. The weather was perfect. So these are, some of these are really, they might sound simple, but just think about how often we don't even notice. I mean, really, we just go right by. I mean, we've been looking out the windows lately and just noticing the colors, because here in Colorado, it's very typical for us to have very hot weather followed by a very quick freeze, maybe even a blizzard or a snowfall that marks the change of the season, and then all the leaves just drop off the trees. That's been happening the last several years. But this year it's actually slowly transitioning, which we haven't seen for a while. And it's really just a beautiful thing to watch. So I think even these simple observations are signs of us paying attention to those little details. Let's see, another one from Mama J. I choose to visit and spend a long weekend with my 93-year-old mom and dad. And from Marilyn, I love the perspective of hidden gifts. I've gained a new client and was invited to speak and introduce myself to an interesting group.
Oh, this is great. I love it. And remember, everyone, at the last call that we did, Chris said that as a group, we are influencing one another. We're actually gaining. What did you say, Chris? You said something that was really profound, and I
don't know
forgot
if I can ever remember something I say on the spot, but I think what I was saying is that as each one of us leans into the capacity of what we can be and do, it impacts all of us. We're influencing each other's lives. So as one of us grows, all of us are benefiting from that, whether we can see it immediately or not. So there's a dynamic interchange, an exchange that happens among all of us, especially the more we spend this time together. On that note, I'm going to read one more comment for now from, if I can find my comments. You're all commenting faster than I can read. From Erlene, she added, many new ideas have dropped into my lap for me to read or investigate, new opportunities, and also some blockages have disappeared. Interesting.
I wanted to just quickly mention, when you read Diana, is it the shifting, quick shift, immediately the words came to me to tell you. So I have to tell you because it was really strong. It said that you are rebuilding. You're rebuilding. And there's a lot of rebuilding of your life, but specifically yeah, specifically what you need to be focusing on is what you've been focusing on. You need to kind of let go, and there's a rebuilding that is happening with your focus. So I just needed to say that because image showed up, and then it was like a trying to rebuild a house kind of an image, but it wasn't a literal house because I tested the house and I didn't get yes on the house. So I just wanted to mention that for you. And what I have been receiving, you welcome, Diana, is that just beautiful emails. I just want to say thank you to so many of you that take time and write these glorious insights and thoughts that are so transformative to our lives. So thank you so much. And then I received one a couple days ago from a client of mine that wrote Marriage 2.0. And she shared with some of these, and I asked her if I could share a little bit, and she said yes. So I'm going to share just the last, maybe a couple sentences with you. And it's about her struggles as a midlife. She calls it the midlife reset. And I thought that was great too. But after being married for 23 years, they're figuring out how's this marriage going to work. She thought about maybe getting a divorce, maybe going separate ways, but after struggles and a lot of work that they have both been doing for each other, and then she has done a lot of work to learn about herself, and then to learn about his traumas growing up and her traumas growing up as well. I would just read the last kind of a paragraph that she wrote here. I always go back to an insight a girlfriend told me after a failed second marriage, realizing that she just traded one set of problems with another, meaning we take ourselves with us wherever we go. I like that, meaning we take ourselves with us wherever we go. If we don't deal with our stuff under the surface, it doesn't matter where we live or who we are with. Our stuff will always find a way to the surface. It's the basis of the 12-step program. You need to deal with your inner wounds if you want to feel good. It's not about the other person, place, or thing. It's about owning your stuff and dealing with it. We each need to do the work, and it doesn't make sense to throw something away without trying to breathe new life into it. What we already have is worth saving, so we continue to carry on growing and changing together. Our story together continues. And I appreciate she shared this piece that she wrote with me. And thank you for letting me share this part with the audience as well. But I think this is a little bit, when I read that, I thought she is spotlight focusing on this, right? Instead of looking at the floodlight and going, well, this is not going well, that's not going well, that's not going to be fixable. Well, this is, what am I supposed to do with that? We get too bombarded, too overwhelmed. But when she tuned in, focused in on her own inner wounds, and took the breath towards that, took her attention towards that, she started to come through that and out of that. So we all know in the spiritual world, we say, the only way out is through. But sometimes it's like only way out seems like there are too many tunnels or just too many things to deal with. So this is a beautiful time of the year in the fall, particularly in North America, for us to a little bit more focus in on it. This is the time that many of you are trying to winterize the home. Chris and I will need to be shutting off our sprinkler systems and things like that. So we're really focusing on how do we go into the fall and out of the fall into the winter season, right? So focus your light a little bit more. And I was going to actually have Chris share this with the group, is that during our trip to New Mexico, we often stop at this place called Ojo Caliente. This has been around, I can't remember, since, I don't know, 1600s. I don't even know, maybe before that. But it's a hot springs. It's a sacred land. So we try to stay there at least one night on the way back from our trip from New Mexico back to Colorado. So this night, the cloud covered sky, and we couldn't see the stars. And it was soon after the new moon. So there was just really no light. So Chris says, do you want to go for a walk, a nighttime walk? So I said, all right, a little bit apprehensively. It's like I haven't done a night walk since I was a little kid. But we walked and we went on a little hike. And, we took it very, very slowly. So our attentions were super focused on our feet, each step, because it was very different feeling than going for hikes during the day when you can see everything, right? This was like literally one step at a time. And he said to me, use your feet like your eyes. Those are your eyes. And things started to unfold in this walk that we went on. So I'd love for Chris to share, but what started to unfold for me was that I was contending with my own fear. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go around that bend. What if a boogeyman's waiting over there? Even though I know that's not going to happen, I was a little bit nervous inside my heart. I could feel my heart rate was going up. So I told Chris, I said, I'm a little afraid of going around because what if something attacks us? He's like, all right, let's just take one step at a time. And remarkable things started to happen towards the end when our eyes got completely adjusted to the darkness. So I will hand it over to Chris.
So I've always liked going out in the dark and testing what I can actually see and take in through my senses in different ways. Something that I always have found fascinating about how our nervous system works with our senses is that 80% of the input that we experience comes through our eyes. So when you're out there, like we were on this night a few nights ago, where it's dark skies, it's cloudy, so you can't even see the stars, the moon's not up, so it's just very, very dark. And yet there's still light. And something that I learned years and years ago was about this hormone that our eyes produce, which allows us to change how light appears to us in the dark. But the trick is you have to stay with it. And I think there's maybe a lesson in here somewhere, but you have to stay with it, because if you panic and if you have a flashlight or a phone and you turn it on and you look at that, it actually changes this hormone's configuration and you lose your ability to see what light there is naturally. And then you feel like you're blinded again. So when we were out on this hike, it's really just about exercising all the different ways that our senses lend us a hand to see when we can't use our eyes the way we are used to seeing. And like Masami said, when you can't see with light, it's very easy for a brain that's familiar to seeing using light and eyes to just recoil and feel these fears and what ifs. She mentioned a couple about the boogeyman. I wasn't expecting a boogeyman myself, but we were on a trail that had very loose rocks, and it was a slope. We were climbing up the side of a hill that there was a chance to slide off the trail or misstep and twist an ankle or something like that. So we had to be very deliberate about what we were doing. And yeah, it's easy to start letting your mind wander and wander. So you wonder, okay, am I going to get hurt? What if I step off the trail and have an accident? What if there's something out there like a predator that hunts at night and it's aware of me, but I can't see it at all? So you get into this mode of fear starting to stir up. But when you can really slow that down and make the mind just quiet down and sit back and just start feeling using the other senses, these really incredible things start to happen. And one of them that we noticed is that when we were letting ourselves gradually adjust, that there came a point, a very distinct point, where you can see that there's a faint sense of light that's actually illuminating from all directions. And when you notice that, you can see it's like, okay, there's no source. It's just there. There's just a faint shine to everything, even in the dark. And that's what we were guiding our feet by. It's a combination of the senses, and then it's almost like this hidden light. And so it's something that it just reminded me, something that came to mind a few years ago was, and I think I've shared it on one of these calls before, was this little phrase that darkness is the light that we cannot see. So I was reminded of that as we were walking, that the darkness is the light that we cannot see. And in fact, in the dark was this light that we can't see if we're not looking for it and allowing it to happen and to have the experience of it. So we had our hike. We safely went up to a point where it was far enough and gradually made our way back down. And by the time we even got down toward the settled area where there were nighttime lights for cars and in the parking area and outside lights, it felt very bright, almost overwhelmingly bright, even though it was just what we would call normal nighttime lights. It seemed like far too much after that. And so it was really a resetting kind of mode to recognize what we're capable of doing. And to tie it back in, just one more thing, to tie it back in with this topic, which we'll say a few more words about, is this spotlight versus floodlight consciousness. And there are a few different ways to think about this. Masami's talking about it here in terms of really taking care to pay attention to what we're putting our attention on. Where are we letting our awareness go to? Versus this almost compulsive jumping from one thing to another. Because it's very normal in society today for us to identify ourselves and our ego with that spotlight consciousness. And so if we're jumping around and not settling on things, not really investigating or taking time to explore things and understand them, just like that short comment, the feedback that Masami received that she read, if we're not spending the time looking and listening and understanding what's already here in front of us, then we're really misusing this capacity that we have for focused awareness, focused attention. Because the floodlight, it tends to get cluttered. Like Masami was saying, it tends to get filled up with to-dos and what ifs and shoulds and all these other things that come filling in. But the truth of it is that floodlight is always on. Just like when we were hiking, it's like that background light. It's this constant surveillance and awareness of our surroundings. Our entire nervous system is plugged into it, but we really dismiss that, or at least ignore it most of the time. And so what we can really do is start bringing these two modes of conscious awareness to our attention, so that when we need to focus and go really into something and to see it more fully, we can do that. But then we can also relax back, just like we did when we started, when we were practicing our breathing. We can pull it back and widen the scope of our senses and start to take in more of what's actually here already, that we don't have to do anything about. We don't have to make it happen. We don't have to call on it. We don't have to fix it. It's already there. So I'll pause there and hand it back to Masami for a minute.
Well, and then if you have any comments, please do put it on the chat. And you're right, Richard. Oho means eyes. Yeah. Caliente is that fire? Is that right?
It means warm or hot.
Warm or hot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The hot eye. Because
Well,
it's
and
spring,
then
the spring has been there, like you said. It was a very sacred place for people that inhabited the region long before the Spanish came. But it's been known and recognized as a place of healing for centuries. And one of its unique qualities is that it's one of the, I think in North America, it's the only known thermal spring that has multiple kinds of minerals that come out in the different pools. And so it's really, it's a powerful place. And right above it, sitting on the ridge above it, are the ruins of an old pueblo. So you can walk up there and find bits of pottery and stone tools and things like that that were left by the original inhabitants in the probably 14th century when they left the area. So yeah, it's a powerful place.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance to it, it's called Ojo Caliente. So, and Ojo is spelled OJO. So, and, I was thinking about when we're walking back, Chris pointed out to me that look at the shadows. And they were shadows that I could see from my feet and my legs in that pitch black darkness. So, and then we actually turned around in every direct 360 and you could see the shadow move with you. So what that meant was that the light wasn't coming from a one directional thing. It was like light was everywhere. So truly the darkness is the light that you cannot see, but you're always being guided. I said it out loud to Chris too. I said, oh my gosh, we're always supported. We're always being guided through this path of rocky, maybe hikes that we did, but whatever your journey is, we are all being guided. And so look for that shadow in the darkness because you'll find that. Then you know that the light is there to give you that shadow, right? And, bringing it back to the health and wellness world, a lot of people, when they initially start to work with me, I will always ask them, can you give me 3 questions, 3 things that you want to really go over today? And those 3 things can be like their whole history. They want to go over it. They can talk to me for, half an hour and then we still haven't got to the 3 things. So a lot of us are really trying to take care of the floodlight issues. It's like, it's this, it's that, it's everything else. It's 20 years ago. It's my past lives. It's my ancestors. It's my marriage. It's my gallbladder and liver. It's my lungs. It's my, I'm not pooping very well, like all kinds. And my job in that, and I will really encourage you to do this, is like, out of all possibilities that you want to address, what is it that is most important? And this is when you want to learn how to muscle test, because you may list out 3 things, list out 15 things, but you want to actually go through each of them and muscle test. And I've actually been muscle testing myself in an interesting way that I haven't even shared with Chris, but I've been actually I've been muscle testing his spinal alignment, and he has no idea that I'm doing this because I'm just practicing it. But I'm actually looking at his sacrum. I'm looking at his angle. How's he sitting? How's his neck position? And I would say the neck position is weakening because I get no on that one, Chris, right now. So maybe readjust. Okay, your sacrum first. There you go. Then let me test it. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, now it's stronger. So I was actually muscle testing my own spinal alignment and playing around with it. If I curl it, what would happen to my muscle test? If I get the nice angle, then what would happen to my muscle testing? So the reason why I'm bringing this up is that, you are this vessel. You're this channel. So before you take off and do all kinds of things, or I got to address this, I have to take this supplement. Oh, magnesium is good for me, so I got to take it. Zinc is good for me, so I have to do this. Oh, this diet is good for me. Oh, maybe I need to work on this emotions. I've been actually kind of working on this for about last 2 weeks without even sharing it with anyone. So this is the first time I'm sharing it. I have actually been muscle testing myself to say, okay, am I in alignment before I even take the supplements? Where's my sacrum? Okay. Do I have the angle that is a correct angle for my body at the sacrum? And something that you want to pay attention to is it's about 30-degree angle for most of us. Okay. At the sacrum. So lumbar lumbar spine comes in, and then you want to have an angle at the sacrum. But what is going on at the thoracic spine? Do you have a nice little curvature? Then what happens at the cervical spine? So I've been actually testing myself at sacrum and lumbar curve joint area and I've been testing my thoracics and I'm looking into my sacrum. Once that's aligned, then I'm testing the supplements. So I don't know, I'm always playing around with my own body. So that's something I've been working on for the last 2 weeks. So, that's kind of a spotlight work. I hope you get that, right? I'm not looking at every possibilities and every potential. If I'm in alignment, my answer to certain things will come into me in a clear fashion. There are no kinks, there are no hoses are getting like bent. And this is something Chris and I talked about on the way to New Mexico driving. I said to him, it's like a hose that is getting kinked, or maybe somebody's putting a thumb at the top so no water can come out, and then it releases too fast and then blows up. And, precision is what I'm working on. That's the spotlight that I'm trying to get people to understand. So you're not getting too overwhelmed by everything that you need to address. But first, align yourself. And I promise you, I will go through some of this in lung retreat too. So for those of you that signed up, look forward to it, because this is something I've been playing around with it. And then I'll definitely take you through on this. Okay. So I will pause there. I know I totally went to a totally different direction, I'm sure. But Chris, anything you want to add?
Well, first thing I'll add is that I noticed that as soon as you pointed that out about my sacrum and I adjusted it, I was noticing my neck was stiff earlier, right as you were saying that. This whole call, for those of you who've heard me talk about this, I have, a neck and spinal injury from an old accident. And part of that is it turns my head a few degrees on the atlas, which is the top of the vertebrae stack where the skull connects. And so my atlas bone is at a slight angle because of that impact that I had. So it tends to get a little bit out of alignment and stiff. And I've also I spent the weekend with my head inside of a bathroom cabinet. And there's a reason for that. It's because I was doing the plumbing. Wasn't just hiding. But I can feel it today. And so,
well, and Chris, I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry. I just kind of the ones that have a face on showing up on this call with the faces. So I hope you don't mind. I checked Sally's, Marilyn's, and our Arena's, Erlene. Okay, so okay. So those three. Okay, you have the sacrum angle that is off. Okay. So you've got to get the rotation at the pelvic floor. So go forward and back like you're doing a belly dancing a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Without moving your head so much, but initiate the moves from there and you'll feel the stiffness right there. Okay. And you're finding just like a right in the middle. That's where you want to be. So let me check it again. Marilyn, you're not quite there yet. Sally, you're good. Marilyn, no. Arena, yeah, you're there now. Marilyn, yeah, there you go. I would rock side to side for you, Marilyn, too, and get your both sits bones to engage. Yeah, because you tend to kind of lean on one side, don't you? More than the other. Like you have a one leg that's quite dominant, one glute that is more dominant. So yeah, there you go. That's better. And Erlene, let me see. Yeah, we got to get you doing the belly down back bend. Because I hate to tell you, you got to unmute yourself. Do you want to unmute yourself just for heck of it? Hold on a sec. Ask to unmute. So I have to ask to unmute. There you go. Erlene, your entire, so I got no on all three sections. So I think you tend to curl a lot. So what I would recommend for you is to put your belly side down on the floor or a yoga mat. And I call it the Sphinx position, but you rest your elbow right underneath your shoulders and you just lift your head up a little bit. Like little babies do, before they are learning how to walk, they will be on the ground doing that. I would do that. Okay. Did that make sense? Because just thinking about it, just you thinking about that is strengthening it.
Yeah, I have a long history of broad-based herniated disc and a
Mm.
degenerating spine,
Mm.
which I'm telling the X-rays are telling me that I have severe degeneration, and the X-rays tell me I'm not owning it. So that's
Yep.
thank you. I'll do
That's what the X-ray says, but
That's right.
so be it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
trying to be that.
I would start to do that. And don't do a full upward dog or anything. Okay. Literally just a little sphinx that you just kind of lift your head up to look around the room. Okay. Like
Okay.
little infants do. Okay. So sorry everyone. I know you didn't volunteer, but I couldn't help it. So
Thank
thank you. All right. Anyway, where am I going with this? Okay. So Chris, anything else you want to read? Well, the reason is Andrew's like, I'm so jealous. I figured that Andrew
Well, I
was,
think he was responding to
oh,
Mary's comment.
Mary Bosse for traveling to Nashville, Tennessee. Yay.
Yeah, no, I thought that's great that you're able to meet up with people that you've been doing this meditation with, and you said 560 plus straight days in the morning. So that's great that you're having the opportunity to come together finally.
Yeah, this is fabulous.
I wanted to just make one comment about the posture and alignment. It's something that we don't, it's one of these little things that's really powerful and so easily overlooked. And you can check it right now for yourself. If you just very gently do, I'm going to build on what Masami said. She often would teach, well, kids and adults to imagine that they had like a bushy foxtail, and that you're sticking out that bushy foxtail a little bit in the back. And then as you do that, you just slightly open up your chest and shoulders. You're not pushing them back, but you're relaxing them open. And if you just do those two things, notice how more attentive, energized, and alert you become without any force. And it also facilitates breathing, which is something that Masami will cover further this weekend.
That's right, Steve. Steve says, I do the alignment first as well before testing for supplements. Well, we have to tell you, Steve is our best friend. He lives literally 2 blocks from us. And I actually found a house for him so he can live close to us. So he's like our family member. So yes, I taught him how to align himself because he was a firefighter for a long time, 25 years. And there's so much like a heavy equipment he had to carry and everything. He started to round his body, and then he started to tuck his sacrum under. So his fluffy, foxy tail was just not fluffing up. So I started to teach him to fluff up his tail. So everybody, we all have tailbones, right? Why do we have a tailbone? That's because we're supposed to fluff up whatever the choice of your tail is. So imagine it could be the fox tail. It could be the little, piglet tail, it could be anything. So think of it, fluff it up, and just, it could be a peacock ones, right? So really be proud of your own tailbone and show off your tail. Okay. So if you do that, everything else starts to align beautifully. So make sure you do that before you start testing all kinds of things. Okay. Oh, I can breathe better. Yay. Excellent. You're welcome, Sally. You got it. You got it. It's like immediately shifted. Mm-hmm. Anything else that you want to read, Chris? Oh, the different
Rookie mistake. I muted myself. Mary was saying she loved the reference to the foxy tail. Very easy to visualize.
Right. Fluff it up in the morning. Like imagine like a brushing it.
Yeah.
Brush up your tail. Seriously, put a bow on it. Oh, love it. So whatever tails, I'd love to hear what your tails look like.
Well, and I would just say too that a lot of us were raised in a way that we were either explicitly or implicitly taught to be ashamed of our bodies one way or another. And I think that practicing this kind of posture, it's basically claiming our space, which is something that I know in the world I grew up in, that's not something I was taught to do positively. And it's very helpful just to feel your full occupation of your body. So again, functionally, it makes it work better. But, you know, if you followed, was she from Harvard or Stanford that, I think her name was Amy Cuddy, that did the power poses. There was a researcher that did studies on body positions and how that is not only a social signal about power, but it's also a physiological change in the body. It actually changes how we produce hormones, and it makes us feel a sense of possibility and empowerment and capability. So how we stand matters functionally and also socially and psychologically in every sense.
Yeah, so let's just do a little practice. And Cheryl, I need you to clarify your question. I'm not quite sure what you're asking me. But first of all, I like all of you to tuck your tail under and never showing off your fluffy tails. Okay, so tuck them under. Just that part. Don't worry about the rest. Well, the rest will actually curl up too. And try taking a really nice, slow, deep breath with that. When you tuck your fluffy tail, what happens? Are you able to breathe at all? Not at all, right? So imagine yourself fluffing up the tail and stay in that position. Okay, everyone, tuck your tail under, stay in that position of sealed in, you can't breathe, but fluff it up in your mind and be proud of your beautiful tail. And take a breath. Can you tell the difference that you can actually breathe a little bit more just by imagining it? Okay, so now let's do both. So imagine it, correct it, okay? Maybe rock it a little bit, side to side, forward and back. Then now take a breath. Fluff it up. Yeah, collectively, I can feel it. Okay, can you feel that? So you can imagine it too, okay? All right, because airplane seats are the nightmare seats for me. For small people, airplane seats are the worst because they're based on 5 foot, I believe, like 11. That is the general seating for. So none of those lumbar supports and everything else fit the right places for me. So I have to imagine the fluffy tail when I'm sitting on the airplane seats. So imagination can take far, okay? But if you could combine that with your actual physical alignment, do you see how powerful you will be? Okay, you are in alignment now, right? So, okay, so did you understand Cheryl's question, or maybe she's not? Did she rewrite it? No. Oh, there she is.
Okay, she says, you have confirmed that my body recovering health is blocking my ability to be able to muscle test. You have said there are health issues or mineral deficiencies, etc., that could keep someone from being able to muscle test. So I can't test for any supplements. I'm looking to know how to fix that.
Yeah. So yeah, I work with a lot of clients that it was say, I muscle tested it and it was fine, or I muscle tested it and it wasn't great. And I'm getting the opposite from that person. That's when I know that person's 5 senses have dulled up. Okay. So what that means is that you want to work on your 5 senses. So you may want to close your eyes and remove the 80% of your awareness that's coming from the eyes. You may need to actually open the supplement, taste it, smell it, and maybe put it on your hand. So you're getting other senses to answer your questions. And you may just need to practice this with the better alignment. Okay. So that's where I would start. Online, how do I do that? What's that? Ordering online. That's going to be a little tough. I don't know exactly. I would start with maybe 1 bottle and just practice it. You know, this is a muscle that you have to exercise, right? So practice, practice, practice. Maybe start with the 1 supplement, zinc, and start with the zinc, taste it, just to bite a little bit off of it. So That's
Can I
probably
jump
what
in
I
too?
would say.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to say this is something that I've admitted this before, but I tend to be skeptical about a lot of things. And so muscle testing was one that I didn't necessarily trust it when Masami introduced me to it many years ago. And it was something that for me to really understand what was happening took so much practice before I could get my mind out of it. And so for me, just practicing on having a reliable and consistent yes and no was probably the most important thing. Because without that, you're really kind of just playing. I mean, you're not really necessarily getting a clear signal. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I think coming back to Cheryl's question too, because this is not just, unique to her situation, because I work with a lot of people that will ask me the same kind of things like, oh my gosh, I am so out of balance inside. I'm not getting the correct yes and no from my body. So tasting it's very important. But number one, I think I would look into getting your upper GIs functioning better. And when I see the clients that are having mixed signals coming in, they can't decipher their yes and no very well. I always kind of start with the stomach acid first. So betaine hydrochloric acid, and I have them actually open the capsule and then put a little bit, sprinkle it on your hand and lick it, and it'll be very, very sour. But that clears the palate, and that also clears the junk in the mind and junk in your gut, because that's what assists you to digest. So that might be a good start, and only test it on a betaine hydrochloric acid for a little bit. So test it, put it on your tongue, and then ask yourself yes and no. And then really get used to asking a yes and no, just using the betaine hydrochloric acid. That will be a good practice so that your inner body knows that, okay, this is the yes and no. And maybe before you do the other supplements, you start with the betaine hydrochloric acid, just to kind of cleanse the palate and cleanse the inner gunk and inner undigested, not metabolized gunk that is inside you. Okay. And maybe right after the betaine, test one of your supplements that you've been wanting to test, and maybe try it virtually as well, over the online. Okay. All right. So I think we got through most of it, Chris, you think?
Oh,
Anything else to share?
I wanted to just say one very quick thing from what you said earlier about, you said closing your eyes removes 80% of your awareness. And I wanted to just clarify that.
Not awareness.
Not your awareness, but sensory input. And just think of it as the visual signals are a lot like noise. There's so much that comes in through our eyes that we just don't really use or need that much. And so when you close your eyes to still your system, removing that 80% of the input from the eyes just gives you so much more ability to pay attention to what's going on from your other senses and internally. So I just wanted to clarify that. But other than that, I think we're good. Practice our focusing our spotlights with intention and not just jumping.
Yeah. Just as we jumped all over the place today. Sorry, everyone. But I think it all had the semi-focus in conclusion, right? Anyway. So many of you, thank you for signing up to the lungs retreat. I'm really looking forward to it. I posted pre-lung retreat suggestions already on that Teachable site. So please go and print it out or look at it at least. Begin to do some of the suggestions also. So you're ready for Friday, okay? And on the Friday, the theme will be grief and sadness, okay? So be prepared for that. Yes, we're going to go deep into that, okay? But we're going to all hold the space for each other to really have the peacefulness and safety to begin to release some of that together, all right? So stay tuned. I will be sending a couple more emails prior to Friday for that, and look forward to it. And then for those of you that are not going to be able to join the lung retreat, we will see you on next Monday, okay? All right, so till then, bye everyone.